learn to improve conversions and generate more leads with the video podcast at marketingoptimization.tv. Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex Designs. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we're chatting with Matin from Heap Analytics. How you doing, Matin?
Good. How are you, Alex?
Doing great. So, to get started, what would be your definition of optimization, and why is it beneficial?
Boy, optimization is a pretty broad term. I think it means a lot of things to different people. The way I think about it in the context of my business, Heap, and our customers is, I think, improving the performance of one key part of your business. And I think the one key part, the constraint there, is the important part of that definition. Like it's pretty obvious what sorts of things you need to increase as a business. It's pretty obvious you need to increase revenue. It's fairly obvious to figure out top-line metrics you need to increase, like active user growth. But I think optimization is figuring out what specific components of your product or your business lead to that growth and trying to focus on improving those things. I think a good analogy here is if you're playing pool and you want to get the balls into the holes, but you need to in order to do that, you need to focus on hitting the cue ball at the right position. And so if you focus on doing that correctly, that can lead to downstream effects that are beneficial. So that's how I think of optimization.
Yeah, so let's give people a quick brief overview of Heap Analytics. I was actually on growthhackers.com, the great site by Sean Ellis, and people were talking about all the different analytics programs that they use, Google Analytics and so forth. And a bunch of people mentioned that they started using Heap Analytics, which I had the opportunity to do a free trial and go through and actually set up myself. And what I found was so interesting is that it was so easy to set up. Basically, there's a little bit of WYSIWYG, a little bit of just drag and drop in order to figure out. But then it gives you retroactive analytics for your previous history, which I was just like blown away. And what I really loved about it is the ability to determine who fills out like your form fields, how far they get down, how far are they actually scrolling down. So I give people a little bit of overview, but give us your overview of what Heap Analytics does.
Sure. And you actually explained it pretty well. Hopefully we're doing a good job with the product and the positioning there. But yeah, in brief, Heap is an analytics tool that automatically captures everything so that you can answer questions as soon as you have them. And so the nice side effect of capturing everything on either your website or your mobile app is that you can generate a lot of these metrics like funnel conversion analysis, retention, user segmentation. You can do all of that immediately. As soon as you want to generate that analysis, you can construct it within the Heap interface, and then it will apply retroactively to all of the data you've been accumulating since you've installed Heap. So that's the general idea, and that's the fact that we let you do that instant retroactive analysis on websites and on iOS apps is our key differentiator.
So let's give people maybe a scenario of how they would use Heap. Let's stick with desktop for right now, but sure. Maybe in a SaaS company, why would you use Heap, and how would you actually get it installed?
How we use it, and because it's the only analytics tool we use. And so for us, when we launched Heap back in earlier 2013, about April 2013, for us, it was really important that we just launched the product. Like that was our foremost focus. And so after launching the product, we got a bunch of press, some users actually using it, people who viewed our different marketing pages and stayed or did not stay. And we didn't instrument any of that stuff up front. Part of it is it wasn't top of mind. But even if it were top of mind, we wouldn't have known the correct events to log. And so it's nice because you can throw the Heap snippet onto your website. And then if you're interested in, say, your conversion funnel, you're a SaaS business and you want to know the number of people who viewed some marketing page and then went on to sign up and then went on to actually use your product and then went on to enter in their payment info. That sort of four-step process, you can sort of define all of those events within the Heap dashboard retroactively. And so as soon as you say, you can say a view payment page is equivalent to viewing a page where the path equals a string. signing up is equivalent to submitting a form with the ID sign up. And so you can set up all those events that way. And then once you've defined those events, which can take 1 or 2 minutes, you can build that funnel and you'll see stats since the day you installed Heap. And so that's how a lot of people use Heap now and how we used it initially as well. And then you can go further from there. I think a key part of analytics is that it's iterative. You see some sort of analysis and it inspires you to ask follow-up questions about, okay, the people, I see a 20% conversion rate from sign up to, turning into a paying customer. Why is this low? Who are the users who signed up but didn't enter in their payment info? I want to know who those users are so maybe I can follow up with them. And there are naturally all these different questions you have. And so I think, a lot of people use Heap to sort of follow up on why does this data look this way? How can I understand what factors contribute to the data turning out the way it has?
Yeah, I think people are kind of used to, looking at, funnel reports. You start in this page, you get to this page, and it's kind of like your classic funnel,
Right.
Start to finish. But Heap takes it even further. It breaks it down to actually the individual user and then
Right.
segment it out even further. So, and that's all based on, for lack of better words, kind of the WYSIWYG setup, no code required.
Sure. Exactly. And so, the way we've set up the UI is very intentional because for us, we think this sort of data should play a big role in just about every role within a company. If you're a salesperson, you should use the data in Heap to better understand who your best leads are. If you're a marketing person, you should use the data in Heap to understand which pieces of content actually led to long-term engagement. If you're a product manager or a designer, you should use Heap to understand which features are actually being used. So because we address such a broad audience, it's important that the experience of digging into that data is very easy. And that's a hard design problem for us because obviously we can make it super easy, but then there's some expressiveness that we sacrifice with an overly simplistic UI. So it's finding that balance between letting you express your questions in the right way and making it easy to ask those questions is a really difficult thing.
Now, just looking through heapanalytics.com, you have the data capture, the event visualizer, funnels, and these certain
Right.
graphs. And I'm looking at the page related to graphs, and it's, event trends, advanced segmentation. So, let's say, we're at the end of the year, we're probably seeing, trends where people are probably coming online, probably in the new year after Christmas, people get new devices. How would you use some of those event trends to kind of maybe, think about, some conversion tests that you would actually be running?
Yeah, so I think, in the context of e-commerce, and Alex, you and I briefly spoke about Black Friday before this, but I think a really important way of looking at event trends and what we try to make really easy in Heap is segmenting those event trends amongst different parts of your user base. So, in Google Analytics, you have, I think, pretty primitive ways of segmenting users by default. So you can segment by where they've come from and, what device they're on. And that's definitely useful and important to look at, but I think it's worth digging a little deeper into what constitute your user segments. So one example in the case of Black Friday is you'll probably want to know for the users who have joined during Black Friday weekend, how retained are they relative to other users? And so what you'd want to do is if you see that event trend, or even better, we have a retention view, which basically tells you the return rate for a given cohort of users. What you want to do is you want to look at that return rate for people who joined on the Black Friday weekend and those who didn't. And then obviously it's hard to know precisely whether Black Friday, caused greater retention or if there's something you did that we engaged users. But being able to see that clear breakdown between, a trend line or a return rate for people who joined that weekend and people who didn't really helps inform the sorts of hypotheses that you can later actually test about, maybe there's some sort of positioning we took this weekend that made customers like us a lot more and make them more likely to come back and purchase from us. So segmentation, I think, is really key when looking at these sort of aggregate trends.
Yeah, I found it really interesting. We were talking about before we got started. This new concept of it's probably new to the web, predictive analytics, and to be able to kind of forecast out how long those people would stay if they were to actually buy on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or maybe opt in. And then Heap Analytics allows you to figure out what contributed maybe to their purchase. Those cohorts come in, maybe they saw some type of social media aspect, or they were on they came from Facebook, and then the reporting is able to kind of put them together that this is the ideal person who clicked on this and was able to actually stay for X amount of weeks.
Absolutely. I mean, so right now, Heap is fairly unopinionated about the data it captures. So for us, our view of the future of analytics is that a lot of that data analysis will be automated. And that's a pretty hard problem, not just technically, but also in terms of how we present that as a UI. Obviously, if the types of analyses that we infer we communicate this sort of confidence about it that is undue, then that could cause people to make a lot of the wrong assumptions about the data. So even if let's say you had a perfect, predictive analytics, you had a UI that had a clippy sort of animated icon appear and say, hey, you should consider reaching out to your customers who signed up yesterday. Even if you do that, it's still really hard because obviously there's different confidence associated with each insight. But I think when you look at, predictive analytics, I think the first step to building that sort of experience is actually getting a giant data set. And so this is actually what data scientists at a lot of companies do, which is the first thing they do is try to amass that corpus of data. And then obviously most of it will be noisy. Most of it won't be that useful for you, but it's important that they amass that up front because it lets them more quickly iterate to the right pieces of data that lead to that insight down the road. So I think for us, I could talk for hours about what I want Heap to look like years from now. And not even I don't mean 10 years, I mean in 2 years. I think there's a lot we could do to help you better understand your users who will churn and help you understand what are the sources of traffic that actually lead to engagement and helping you, take action on those things by proactively surfacing them to you, which no other tool does. And I think the way to build that experience is to actually do what we've done, which is capture that full data set. But to get there, we need to capture that full data set. We need to allow for easy, interactive, powerful analysis of that data set. And so that's what we're focusing on now. But I would really like us to build a lot of those predictive features down the road.
Yeah, I find it really interesting because I remember I worked at a SaaS company for 11 years, a dieting subscription website. And what we found was as people came through our funnel, if they just posted one time in our community or they spoke to a dietitian in this case, they were able to stay for an additional 2 or 3 months down the road. And
Right.
In the e-commerce space, it's hard to really kind of figure out what that magic connect the dots is.
Right.
We don't even know if they're using the product when it actually
Right.
arrives at their house. So have any of your customers who are using Heap Analytics, are they using the data in that kind of way to improve their profitability?
So you mean using the data to find correlations and what
Mm-hmm.
sort of
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So I think in our particular case, we found that if customers who view our demo, so we have a demo dashboard that lets you actually use the features of Heap. And so we actually used to have that. And we noticed that the people who viewed the demo dashboard, the people who interacted with it, were much more likely to convert and were much more engaged. And obviously there's some significant selection bias there, right? Because if you're eager to play around with all the different parts of Heap, that probably self-selects for people who are more interested in Heap. But interestingly, we found, we have since taken it down for a number of reasons, because mostly for engineering effort, because it's actually sort of difficult for us to maintain like a demo dashboard, and it kept breaking. And so we decided, that demoing a broken experience is worse than nothing. So we actually took it down and we'd like to bring it back. But, we noticed that even if you account for a lot of the things that a more interested user would self-select for, which includes using the demo dashboard more, but also like viewing all of our marketing pages, viewing all of our featured pages and whatnot. And it's still the case that, using the demo dashboard actually does increase your willingness to use Heap the product. And so that's interesting to us. And we were able to very clearly delineate that segment of users from the rest of the user base. And being able to see the difference in engagement and conversion between those two different segments actually, made us realize, hey, this is actually important. Like, our UI is a competitive advantage and we should highlight it to the extent we can. And that, again, that goes back to segments. And that's part of the reason why we make segments such a first-class item within the Heap dashboard. So if you go to the Heap dashboard, you can define events, which everyone understands the utility of. But the second thing you can define is a segment. So defining a segment as users who discovered me from Twitter, or it can be as something as complex as users who have run a query in the previous week, or invited a teammate, or have saved a report as a PDF or something. And defining segments in that way, I think, is really important for understanding growth and what drives growth.
And I think one of the most powerful aspects of Heap is that everything is real time. So if you were doing that Black Friday or Cyber Monday sale, you can,
Yes.
minute by minute or hour by hour, you can see what's working and what's not.
Absolutely.
And actually optimize it in real time, to get the biggest benefit from those
Absolutely.
campaigns.
Yeah, I think the data itself is pretty close to real time. And more importantly, the analysis is real time. So it's important for us that, when you ask a question of the Heap interface, that the answer be returned as quickly as possible. And as you can imagine, doing that at the scale we do it is a pretty difficult thing. And so a lot of our effort goes to making sure that that experience stays snappy, even for our very large customers. And we do have some pretty large customers using us too. So.
Yeah, because especially, during those type of campaigns, Black Friday, obviously it's only a day,
Right.
Cyber Monday, real time data does come into play really well. You drop an email campaign. Let's say, you sell out of
Right.
one item automatically. You don't want to send people directly to that item anymore. You want to know about it and then be able to, tweak your website based on those initial actions that are going
Right.
on right there.
Or, somebody is mentioning you on Twitter, or you've got a new, let's say growthhackers.com mentions you or something. You want to be able to respond to that quickly.
Yep.
So I think real-time data is quite important. Definitely.
Yeah, and what I really liked about it is that, once you kind of define your segments, you kind of figure out what those ideal scenarios are. You can determine those high value customers, as you mentioned on your website, and then be able to kind of model that out for maybe other campaigns, social media, pay-per-click advertising, email marketing, and so forth.
Right. Definitely.
Very cool. Let's give people maybe a little bit of overview of how it incorporates into mobile apps or iOS. Is it Android as well, or?
So we only have an iOS integration right now.
Okay.
We're working on an Android one. So it's very similar to how it works on web. In iOS land, instead of throwing a code snippet, you throw an SDK into your app. You can use CocoaPods to do it very easily, or you can follow a few steps and add it to your iOS app. And then that's pretty much it. The way it works is, once you add the SDK, you push your app through the App Store. And then the nice thing is, our SDK works in the background. It's super lightweight. It incurs basically no CPU, battery, or network overhead. And we collect a lot of the same actions as we do on web. And actually, we can do it in iOS is a more structured, like Objective-C, the iOS development environment is generally more structured, so we can actually get some pretty salient data from there relative to web. So the nice thing is, you have all of these events that we auto capture on for iOS apps. The view controllers that appear, and this is getting a little technical, but I think your mobile audience should be able to understand this. But yeah, we capture view controllers, we capture the gestures that users take, and on what in what context they took it, and the action methods they trigger, and you can use a lot of those raw building blocks to do what you do in the web interface, which is define the events you care about after the fact. And it's nice because you can do that without having to go through the App Store. And if you think about, the release cycle and like instrumenting your website and pushing new updates to get at new data and waiting for that data to trickle in, that feedback loop, as bad as it is on web, is significantly worse on mobile because you do need to go through the App Store and because a lot of those changes are harder to make for an iOS app. And so we found that our mobile users are a lot more, some of them are a lot more ecstatic than our web users because what would previously take 3 weeks now takes 1 minute.
Wow. And,
Yeah.
from if you were to check out heapanalytics.com, they have a bunch of great brands who are using the analytics package, Zendesk, Airbnb, Salesforce, Infusionsoft, The Onion. I imagine they're capturing just a ton of data.
Yeah.
Have they came to you and I assume that eventually they're going to create some case studies. Is there any insight into maybe some of the smaller mid-sized businesses they can use data in order for their conversion optimization?
Uh, Sorry, do you mean are there smaller customers they can look at
Yeah,
for?
because I know the audience is probably, they're probably not, in the position of what Infusionsoft or Salesforce is collecting,
Oh, I see.
the ability to kind of any insights into what they're doing that a
I
smaller
see.
mid-sized business can do to improve their conversions.
Yeah. So you mean how can small, medium businesses look to take advantage of Heap given some of our bigger customers? Yeah, I think it's, a lot of our bigger customers, some of them literally run thousands of experiments at once. They have a giant volume of data, and, for them, the aggregate insight is, I think, more important than it should be for a small and medium business. Obviously, so we have, Zendesk uses Heap, and it's interesting because their customer support team actually uses Heap as well. And that's, I think, an example of what happens when you make an analytics product easily digestible. And their customer support team uses it to follow up on individual users who express, some dissatisfaction or some sort of issue with the Zendesk product, and they can use Heap to understand precisely what actions they took. And I think, even at their size, that sort of analysis is incredibly valuable, if not more so for a small, medium business. I think a lot of the analytics work that a small company should do is forming those hypotheses and models about their users to better understand what it is that or what the levers for growth are. And then, for a small company, and we're a pretty small company, we're 7 people, so we think about this all the time. And a lot of how we inform our intuition about what to ask is doing that more granular per user analysis. And so, if we have a customer who was using Keep extensively and didn't convert, we want to figure out, what exactly they did and understand what features of the product they used, and maybe, some of the features they use they weren't impressed with. And so we want to know what that is. And I think for a small medium business, you some of that aggregate analysis is important. Like you want to track active user growth, you want to track revenue, but I think you really want to get at that user level insight and understand, who are some of the interesting users, either because they converted or because they didn't, and understand what they did and use that to inform some ideas for tests or ideas for ways of breaking down your growth by different user segments.
Yeah, I asked that because I know it's probably Infusionsoft, but definitely Salesforce and Intuit. I've seen them do landing page testing now for years and years, and they're probably just collecting so much data. And going back to your initial analogy, how you hit that cue ball at the right angle. I mean, maybe there's ways that the smaller medium sized business can also hit that cue ball in the right way to get the biggest
Yeah,
benefit.
definitely. I think so. I think there are two ways a small business can do that. I think the nice thing with a small business, and to share an adage of Paul Graham's, they can actually do things that don't scale. And the nice thing is they can talk to 10% of their user base. And that's a really valuable thing. I think, a small business should be talking to their customers on a day-to-day basis, whether that means they're proactively reaching out to them and trying to do in-person design sessions, or whether it's, handling support tickets and support requests. And that sort of qualitative analysis, as I said earlier, can hone the intuition as to what the important aggregate metrics are. I think separately for a small business, it's some of the things that are hard to scale as you grow are pieces of your conversion funnel that are lower at at near the bottom of the funnel. So what I mean by that is like, you can view top of the funnel as people actually hearing about your product in the first place. You can view middle of the funnel as them trying to use your product and figuring out whether to purchase it. And then the bottom of the funnel is them actually purchasing. And you can even go further, and further than that is like coming back and making repeated purchases. And I think at least the approach we take is we really want to make the bottom part of those funnels as optimal as we can. And so we actually focus a lot on minimizing churn and on retaining our customers, because there are proven methods for increasing the top of the funnel. There are proven methods for improving your marketing pages, for purchasing ads, for getting exposure, and for A/B testing those different landing pages. But it's very difficult to know why people are churning or why they're not converting. And if you can get a 2x increase on the bottom steps of the funnel, and that pays dividends down the road when you expand the top of the funnel. So I think small businesses can benefit a lot from focusing on the parts of the funnel closer to conversion. And that's something that doesn't get easier with time, but marketing and top of the funnel growth does.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That, talking to your customers directly, getting that feedback loop, iterating that feedback into your optimization practices, testing different things, and then figuring out what that, that magic formula is of those highly valuable customers. What are they doing over time to get them to return? Is it sales? Is it promotion codes or whatever it is? Eventually you can build out that map.
And, what is it, the customers who are dissatisfied, what is common amongst them, and how did you fail in terms of your landing page or your product experience that could maybe bring them back.
Yeah, that the qualitative aspect of all of that stuff is just really so important. Getting into the voice of the customer and understanding what pains or pleasures that they do have, and addressing those along the way. Awesome. Well, let's tell people how they can find out more about you and maybe start a free trial.
Yeah, so you should go to heapanalytics.com if you want to learn more about Heap. And if you have any questions about the product itself, you can email me specifically, Matin at heapanalytics.com. My name is spelled Matin. And if you have any questions at all, we like to treat our customers as well as we can and make sure they get the most out of the product. So we try to make ourselves available as much as possible.
Awesome. To close out, what would be one thing that optimizers and these implementers of analytics do to maybe take their conversion rates and their businesses to the next level?
Oh boy, I think there are a lot. I don't know if there's a single silver bullet. I will mention one small thing that I actually think is quite important that I don't see many businesses do, which is ask your users how they found you. Like, understand, because obviously, you look at referral data and web traffic, and that's flawed for many reasons. But, as part of your sign up flow, if you have some sort of step that says, how did you discover us? That it can play a huge role in understanding, what are the best sources of traffic for you and where to, focus on in terms of generating awareness for your product. And, we do that ourselves, and it's hugely illuminating to see where people find us. Like for us, I want to say 85% came through word of mouth, friends or coworkers. And, some people came from search, and we ran like some AdWords things briefly, but, for the most part, it does come from word of mouth. So which is really interesting for us, because that means, okay, maybe we should focus on a referral program or making it really easy for people to share Heap with their coworkers. And so if you ask people how they found you, and again, I can't think of many businesses that do this as part of their sign-up flow, then you can better understand where to spend your time in terms of acquiring more customers and retaining them.
Absolutely. I think it's actually a great suggestion. I know there's probably a lot of consultants probably listening to this, and I know that I always ask my potential clients how they found me and what they did, the steps in order to maybe hire me. And I'll tell you that majority of them all watch one of my videos, and I know that, I'm not necessarily, the best public speaker out there, but they see that that I'm genuine, I'm a real person, and my personality comes through, and that's one of the main reasons why they hire me. Yeah. So if you could figure out what's really working for you can essentially do more of that.
Nice. And it was easy, right? You just asked them.
Yeah.
And now okay, maybe I should invest more time in these videos.
Yeah, even when I do my clarity calls, I specifically ask them what they search for in clarity, and I optimize to those keywords. So that's another tip for you if you do have a clarity profile. Thanks a lot for your time, Matin. Thank you for watching the Marketing Optimization Podcast with Alex Designs. Please remember to subscribe to all of the videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.